Everybody. Pastor Andy here. Glad to be with you today. Excited to be with you as we start this brand new week off. It's Monday. Hope you had a great weekend and maybe finished up celebrating your July the 4th and time off and all those different things. Friends, family, food, fireworks, whatever was filling your time. I want to jump back into our teaching on faith. We've been looking at that now for quite a few lessons, maybe at least one or two more, because it's such a important part. It is such an important part of our life. Now, some people might argue with me on that, and that's okay. But what we find as we get older, even back in the 80s, in the big hair band era and all the big ballad, arena ballads and ballad rock and all this stuff, there were songs that always talked about, don't stop believing, or I need something to believe in. And all. There was a continual flow of that idea. So when we think about needing something in our life to believe in, something that's bigger than us, something that at times we can't see, we find the beauty of that contained in Scripture. We find the beauty of that in a walk with Christ, because not all of it do we understand. And someone who says they do is not being honest. But what we can know is deep down inside, we just have this. It's almost hard to describe, but we have this thing in us that just tells us it's true. I may not get it, I may not understand it, but I know that it's true, therefore I can trust in it. We turn to Mark chapter 9 and verse 23 today. All right, so they've brought one that is possessed by a demon, all right, to Jesus. And this is one that has been tormented and aggravated now for quite a while. And so the person says to Jesus, from childhood, as to how long this has been happening, and many times it's thrown him down and done all kinds of things. But here's the question that was asked to Jesus before we get to our verse. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. So this was the challenge to Jesus, right? And here's how he responded in our text for the day. Mark 9 and verse 23. Jesus said to him, if you can, speaking of himself, because he's trying to get one to understand, if you really believe in who I am, if is not the word. If I can, if you can, that's what he's repeating the question to them. If you can, everything is possible for one who believes. I want us to think about that. He says, everything is possible for one who believes. Why is that important? Because when we state that we have that level of belief, we're not asking God to prove something, because God's already proven it. And if we trust that, if our blind faith, that unflagging trust, allows us to say, I believe it. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I believe it. That changes the entire context of how we approach things. And so James chapter 2 and verse 17, kind of giving a little follow-up, it says, even so, if it has not works, is dead being alone. Even so, faith. Okay, so even so, faith, faith without works, in other words, is dead being alone. In other words, if I say it, but I don't believe it, it has no value. Well, that holds true in anything. If I'm telling you something, even just like doing this lesson, if I for whatever reason just don't have anything else to do, and this is how I want to spend my time. I just want to sit in front of this camera and teach lessons every day, but I don't believe none of it. Well, it has no power. It has no value. It has no substance. It has nothing. And eventually it just becomes, as Paul would say in 1 Corinthians, it's just noise. Because if I can't give it to you, not just impassioned as a speaker, as a teacher, but as one who himself actually believes what I'm telling you, then the listening audience eventually picks up on that. It's just like a salesman, right? If a salesman is trying to sell you a product that they themselves would never buy, they don't usually do a good job. And eventually you catch them in that. Again, not to be critical or to be looking to try to snag somebody, but if you don't believe it, why should I? You know, I've seen that in all different types of professions. I mean, my work, I've seen that in medical work. I've been with both of my parents recently. They're getting older and they have a lot of health issues. And you go and you ask that, they go to all these different appointments and the doctor's asking all kinds of questions. And I ask them myself as I get to sit in those appointments sometimes, would you do this? No. Then why are you asking them to? So here we see faith. If it doesn't have anything behind it, any substance behind it, it has no value. James goes on and writes, says, but one may say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. In other words, a profession of a lifeless faith is profitless because it has no value. If it's just words, that's no different than telling a stranger you love them. They don't really believe that because there's nothing there that would prove that. And we're not talking about flowers and gifts. There's no substance to those words because their first inclination, their first thing is, you don't know me. You can't possibly love me. Okay, there's only one that is capable of that kind of love, and that's God. But then that's not even the same thing because God knows everybody, right? And so we see here, faith always produces something, and that something is evident. In other words, if our faith is real, and this is important for the lesson today, if our faith is real, the evidence of that is not how much scripture we can quote. It is not how many times we go to church or what membership roll we're on or how many times we've been baptized or any of that stuff. The evidence of our faith is a changed life. It's really that simple, friends, that I am not who I used to be. If I am serious about what I believe, and I'm not talking about keeping the rules and all the tenets and dotting all the I's and all the T's and all that, I'm not talking about that. Okay, that's legalism. That is not what this is about. When my life is no longer, when that, as Paul talks about, that new creation, all right, if that is true, if that is evident in my life, it will be seen. Okay, that is not a mark of perfection. That is not to say that I will never ever have a human moment again, or I will never stub my toe, or got nothing to do with that. The evidence of a real faith, a professed faith, is a changed life. And it is not verbally said, it's visible. It can be seen. That's how this ties into being a fruit of the Spirit, because as we've talked about, everything from love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and gentleness and all these other things, we get here to faith, it too must be visible. Okay, that's not a hidden attribute. That is not one of the characteristics of the fruit of the Spirit that nobody sees. No, that may be one of the main ones that people see, because if my love is real, my joy becomes real. And if I have joy, I find peace. And if I have peace, I find patience. And we see how that gets to faith. Because if all these other components are there, then I believe in all of them. Therefore, it shows in my life. Full surrender is also evident as well. And again, we don't tie this, I don't, to a legalistic mindset of a bunch of rules and a bunch of, made up, man-made doctrines and all kinds of stuff. No, it's about what has God done to my heart? If I have given him my heart, if I have surrendered my life to him, what has happened? It's not the same. Because if I give it to him, he reconstructs it. He makes it all new, and it thinks different. It feels different. It acts different. And while those human abilities are still there, he never takes that away from us. I have a less tendency to want to lean toward those things because they just don't have the same value anymore. They don't have the same impact or the same oomph, if you will. It becomes evident. Our faith becomes just who we are. And that is so important, because this kind of faith, it shows that a believer's life is different, that indeed we are that new creation. The old has passed away. And when we look over our life, when we really do that evaluation, if you will, we begin to understand it is not just words anymore. It is action, because it is the real deal. Is that where your faith is today? Maybe time to do a little mirror check, a little inventory. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. God bless you, friends. Have a great rest of the day.